September 1st, 1934, near Albury, New South Wales. Picture this. A young farmer just going about his morning, leading his bull.
And then he finds something horrific. A body. Stuffed in a culvert.
Yeah, a young woman. And the state she was found in, just shocking.
But her skull is fractured, she had bullet wounds, and a towel over her head, covered by a potato sack.
And parts of the body were charred. Someone had tried to burn her.
It's brutal. And for almost 10 years, nobody knew who she was. She became known only as the Pyjama Girl.
Such a chilling name. Today, we're doing a deep dive into this, a decade-long investigation full of twists.
We've got some really interesting sources to work from here.
Definitely. There's a newspaper piece from the Argus in 1944, right when things started breaking.
And info from the Museums of History NSW website, which gives good context.
Australian Arts Review, a more recent news article from 2020.
And even a blog post from the Public Record Office, Victoria, looking at some archival stuff. It's quite a mix.
So our mission today is basically to unpack the key moments, look at the huge challenges they face just trying to get an ID.
And explore those questions that, believe it or not, still kind of linger around this case, even after all this time.
Okay, so let's start back at the beginning. That initial investigation phase, say 1934 to 38, the mystery was total.
Right. The discovery itself on How Long Road near Albury, it offered clues, but they were confusing.
Like that potato sack with the letters on it?
Yeah, Dal and Or-IA. Yeah. It strongly suggested, or seemed to suggest, the Dalmore district down in Gippsland, Victoria.
That must have felt like a solid lead initially, a geographical link.
You'd think so. But like so many things in this case, it didn't quite pan out immediately.
And the pajamas themselves, not just any pajamas.
No, yellow silk, luxurious, with a Chinese dragon design in the middle of the Depression. That really stands out, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It hinted at someone maybe, not struggling financially in the same way most people were, which you'd think might make her easier to identify, but it just seemed to add another layer of mystery. Who was she? Why end up like this?
The police? Well, they were really up against it, trying to put a name to her. Their methods maybe seem basic now, but they were trying everything they could think of back then.
Like remolding the face.
Yeah, essentially making a plaster cast from the skull, trying to reconstruct what she might have looked like.
And dental casts, too.
Serious stuff. Anything to jog someone's memory, get the public involved.
And they preserved the body, didn't they? In formalin.
They did. First at Sydney University, then later moved to Sydney Police Headquarters. It shows they weren't giving up. They were determined.
It's pretty intense to think about keeping the body for so long, almost like she was waiting.
And the government put up a reward. A big one.
How much was it?
£1,000, which was a fortune back then.
Wow, that really shows the pressure, the public interest.
Absolutely. And they even took the step of exhibiting the body publicly at Sydney University.
That's hard to imagine today. But I guess it shows how desperate they were for anyone, to recognize her.
The public fascination was immense.
Then there was the coronial inquest in Albury in 38. What did that establish?
Well, frustratingly, not much definitively. They couldn't pin down the exact time or place of death.
Just that she was likely killed elsewhere and brought there?
Yeah, the theory was she was transported in a car.
Yeah.
And the head injuries, likely from something heavy and blunt. A tire lever was mentioned as a possibility.
So still lots of unknowns, even after 4 years.
Precisely. They knew how she likely died, but not when, where, or crucially, who she was.
What about other clues from the scene? The towel.
Ah, yes, the towel. They traced its origin to Japan, probably imported around 1933.
Any identifying marks?
They found laundry marks, possibly RCO or RMO, but investigating those led absolutely nowhere. Another dead end.
And the initial police description, what did they think she was like?
Based on a 1934 circular, they thought she was likely English, aged maybe 23 to 28.
And something about her teeth.
Yeah, they were strong, which made them speculate she might be from limestone country, like Somersetshire in England.
Interesting detail. Though her parents, it turned out, were from Sussex, right? Still England, but...
Exactly. Shows how even those specific deductions could be slightly off.
The sheer number of false leads early on is incredible.
Oh, completely. That Argus article from 44 mentions 18 positive identifications in just the first month.
18?
Yeah. And they checked out 720 missing girls, went through 3,000 missing women files in NSW in Victoria. looked internationally.
Any really notable false trails?
There was a confession down in Adelaide, turned out to be false. A man claimed she was his niece, also wrong. Imagine the emotional roller coaster for families.
Absolutely heartbreaking. So many hopes raised and dashed.
Okay, so the initial burst of activity kind of fades after 38. We move into this next phase, maybe 39 to 44. The leads dry up, but weird things still happen.
Like finding slippers.
Yeah, 1939. Slippers and some other women's shoes found in a lagoon. Seems like it could be related.
But wasn't.
Thanks.
Just another dead end.
Pretty much. Adds to the frustration, you know? Feels like pieces are emerging, but they don't fit the puzzle.
And there was a film made. A police film.
A short one, yeah, also 1939. The Pyjama Girl murder case.
And the producer got threatened.
Apparently received an anonymous threat, which is interesting. Suggests someone wanted the case kept quiet, maybe. Adds a bit of a sinister undertone.
Definitely. Then there's the story of Miss Jeanette Rutledge.
Yes. A really sad situation. She came forward claiming the Pyjama Girl was her illegitimate daughter, Anna Philomena Morgan.
And she tried to claim the estate?
She applied for administration, yeah, but the court dismissed it. It just shows the human cost, the desperation of families looking for answers about missing loved ones.
Then the Daily Telegraph reported on a secret police file in 1941. What was that about?
It seemed to circle back to Mrs. Rutledge and her daughter, Anna Philomena Morgan. Apparently, Mrs. Rutledge had initially identified the body as her daughter.
But then denied it.
Well, she'd previously denied it was her. Then she identified her. But when she actually viewed the body back in 37, she definitively said it wasn't Anna Philomena.
Why the change of heart then?
She cited differences in the teeth and hair. Police noted a resemblance to photos of Anna, who had been reported missing by her grandmother late in 34.
So confusing signals all around. Even the police weren't convinced it was Anna Morgan.
Right. It just highlights how unreliable identification could be, especially after such a long time and given the state of the body. Eyewitness accounts could be tricky.
So by 1942, still no ID, and the body gets moved again.
Yep. This time to police headquarters itself. Years have passed. Leads have gone cold. You can sense the investigation is kind of stalled.
But then 1944, a whole decade later, things finally start to shift.
Exactly. According to that Argus article, the NSW police took a fresh look, a renewed investigation. And crucially, they found, let's say, inaccuracies or issues with the original forensic work.
A fresh pair of eyes, essentially.
Something like that. And this new look proved absolutely vital.
This is where detectives Latrobe, Ramus, and Stackpole come in.
Correct. They uncovered an old file, one concerning the disappearance of a woman named Linda Platt.
Linda Platt. Tell us about her background.
Okay, so she came over from London, first to New Zealand in 1926, then Sydney in 27, worked as a hairdresser on a ship, the Orangi.
Okay.
Then, in 1930, she married a man named Antonio Agostini. They moved to Melbourne in 1933.
Right.
And then, Linda disappeared, August 26, 1934. From Carlton, where they were living.
August 26, 1934. That's just days before the Pyjama Girl body was found.
Precisely. The timing was incredibly close. Too close to ignore.
And there was something specific linking her to the body.
The dental work. Linda Platt had some specific dental work done back when she was in Sydney. That became the key.
The crucial piece they needed.
It seems so. And the police commissioner at the time, Mr. McKay, he got some new information. This led them directly to Antonio Agostini.
Linda's husband?
Yes. He'd recently been released from an internment camp. Remember, this is wartime.
Right, Italians were interned, so they bring him in.
They question him for over 2 hours. He confirms the details. He was a cloakroom attendant in 30, married Linda that year, moved to Melbourne for his job with an Italian newspaper.
Did he say what happened to Linda?
Well, the really big step was bringing in people who knew Linda Platt back in Sydney.
Friends, colleagues.
15 former friends, yeah, including some women she'd worked with as usherettes. They were brought to view the body, preserved for 10 years.
That must have been incredibly difficult, traumatic.
Unimaginable. But it was pivotal.
Did they recognize her?
According to the Argus, 5 of them positively identified the body as Linda Agostini.
5 positive IDs.
And another 9 were almost certain, despite, the condition after all that time in formalin.
That's pretty compelling collective recognition.
It gave the police the confidence they needed. Antonio Agostini was then taken back to Albury.
To reconstruct the crime.
Yes, to walk them through what happened at the scene where the body was dumped. And shortly after that, he was charged. Not in Albury, though.
Right, because the theory was the death happened in Melbourne.
Exactly. He was charged with the murder of his wife, Linda Agostini, in Melbourne.
But the body was found in NSW. Did that cause problems?
It did. As the Argus pointed out, there had already been an inquest in NSW. But the crime itself was alleged to have occurred in Victoria. Jurisdictional issues.
Always complicates things. So what happened at the trial in Melbourne?
He went on trial for murder. But the jury came back with a different verdict.
Not guilty of murder.
Acquitted of murder, yes, but found guilty of manslaughter.
Manslaughter, what sentence did he get?
6 years in prison. He ended up being paroled after serving just over 3 years. 3 years and 1 month.
And then?
Deported. Sent back to Italy in 1948. He died there in 1969.
So the case was officially closed. Conviction, sentence served, deportation.
In the eyes of the law, yes. And those records from the Public Record Office of Victoria, released in 2020, they show his prison entry at Pentridge in 1944. It's a concrete link back to that time.
But it's not quite the end of the story, is it? Doubts remained.
Not at all. Decades later, in 2004, Richard Evans published his book, The Pyjama Girl Mystery. And he threw serious doubt on the whole thing.
What kind of doubts?
He questioned the identification itself and the conviction. He actually suggested police corruption and a miscarriage of justice.
Wow, those are huge claims. What was his evidence?
He pointed to some pretty stark physical discrepancies, things that don't seem to add up.
Like what?
Eye color, for one.
Mm-hmm.
The Pyjama Girl was widely reported as having brown eyes. Linda Agostini apparently had blue eyes.
That's a pretty major difference. Hard to explain away.
It is. And there were other things, noted differences in bust size, the shape of the nose compared to photos of Linda.
So things the friends who identified her maybe didn't notice or couldn't tell given the body's condition.
Possibly. Or maybe Evans argues they are mistaken or even pressured. He also questioned Agostini's confession. Evans highlighted inaccuracies in Agostini's account, details about the head injuries, the weapon used. They didn't quite match the forensic findings.
Which raises the question, did he really know the details? Or was the confession unreliable?
Exactly. Evans raised the possibility of coercion. Think about it. The police were under immense pressure after 10 years to close this high-profile case. Did they push too hard?
It's an uncomfortable thought. And what about all the other potential victims?
Right. Evans brings that up too.
Yeah.
There were, 125 other possible identities considered at one point?
Yeah.
What happened to all those investigations? Were they properly concluded?
If the body wasn't Linda, who was she? One of those other women.
It's possible. And it leads to an even darker thought.
Which is?
Could Linda Agostini also have been murdered around that same time? But the body in the culvert, the Pyjama Girl, was actually someone else entirely.
So 2 separate tragedies. 2 murdered women.
It's a theory Evans explores. A chilling possibility that means the mystery wasn't solved at all, and maybe another killer got away with it.
Man, that really keeps the case alive, doesn't it? No wonder it still fascinates people.
Absolutely. And that fascination is reflected in popular culture over the years.
We mentioned that early film from 1939.
The Pyjama Girl murder case, yeah.
Uh,
But it didn't stop there. The story went international.
the Italian film.
La ragazza del Pyjama Giallo, the Pyjama Girl case from 1977, and a book followed.
Even comics.
Yeah, featured in Eddie Campbell's Bacchus, and more Australian connections too, a short film called Roadside in '98, inspired by it.
And a play more recently.
In 2013, yeah. Hot House Theater, right there in Albury, Wodonga, where it all started, commissioned a play called The Pyjama Girl.
So the story just keeps being retold, reinterpreted.
It really does. Whether you think of her as the Pyjama Girl or Linda Agostini, it's just one of those deeply perplexing, unsettling true crime stories.
A decade of searching, a confession, a conviction, but still shadowed by these really significant doubts.
It really throws a spotlight on forensic challenges back then. Trying to solve such a brutal crime without the technology we have today.
It's almost impossible to imagine, and the public interest was just off the charts, wasn't it? Those pajamas, the mystery.
Huge media attention. Constant pressure on the police. You have to wonder how much that influenced the investigation, especially towards the end.
Yeah, the media narrative is a big part of it. What do you think our ongoing fascination with cases like this says about us? Why are we still talking about the Pyjama Girl nearly a century later?
That's a great question. Is it just the puzzle? The search for definitive answers? Or does it tap into something deeper about, justice, truth, and the darkness that sometimes lies hidden? The fact that maybe, just maybe, The neat conclusion wasn't the real story.
Definitely makes you think. And there's still more you could dig into if you wanted. The specifics of the forensics, both early on and the 1944 re-examination.
Or really delving into Richard Evans's book and those discrepancies he highlighted, comparing the evidence yourself.
And even looking at how the public reacted at different stages, the discovery, the long wait, the trial, the doubts later on. It's a case with so many layers.
It really is. The story of the Pajama Girl, whoever she truly was, just keeps echoing. Those questions haven't gone away.